So here's something interesting. On the sidelines of Mining Indaba 2025, I got the opportunity to grab the ear of the MEC of Finance and Economic Development in Gauteng, Lebogang Maile. We had what I would call an insightful and very interesting conversation. We went back and forth around mining, investment, Gauteng's key sectors, and even how to deal with corruption and economic growth challenges in the province. Now, I also want to categorically state that sometimes being a one-man band on some of these trips can be a little bit tricky. So my mic gave up at some point, but I just kept on rolling. Apologies for that sound in advance. But I think that this will be a good podcast. Either way, you need to listen right through. The first thing that I asked the MEC was what the reception has been like for Gauteng, a province that has historically been a key mining driver and that now sees the need to diversify more and shift a lot of things upstream. Over to you, MEC.
Gauteng has been, as you correctly say, at the center previously, and in fact the name Egoli is because people were coming for Egolite to mine, looking for opportunities. The opportunities might have declined over years, but you still have about 159 mining companies. In Gauteng, there's about 44 of those that are still mining gold, and a lot of them are headquartered there. But you also have a lot of equipment manufacturing companies which are based there, and they're not only manufacturing for Gauteng-based companies, they're also supplying other provinces, the continent, and the rest of the world. And that shows that the economy of Gauteng is very resilient, it's very diversified, it's very sophisticated. And as you know, the economy of Gauteng has got primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. So it is a very, very diversified economy. And being here is about consolidating that position. It's about looking at how do we digitize this manufacturing and keep up with the times, but also how do we support these companies that are doing a wonderful job who are in our provinces, in our province, and how do we solve the challenges that they face? Because in most cases, people are happy to do business in our province. They are happy to invest a lot of money, but they always say we've got this or that challenge, and we always put our best foot forward and try our level best to resolve their issues.
Now, one of the really, I'd say, crux issues that have been coming out of mining Indaba this year, specifically from the smaller players, but also from the bigger guys, is the issue of ZAMA ZAMAs. Now, I know you had stepped out in the earlier sessions that we had, but there was a young gentleman who came in and said he thinks that there's a solve for the ZAMA ZAMA thing, and it's formalizing the artisanal mining sector. That was one of the things that he said. Now, I want to understand from the perspective of yourself having been on the ground and also now directing a lot of the funding that assists the province to work. How is the province seeing the ZAMA ZAMA, I would say, issue, right? And how is the province looking to solve it, but to sustainably solve it, was the bigger question that was coming out from the room. How are you seeing all of this?
I think the Minister of Minerals, Mr. Gwede Mandashe, has also spoken on this issue. And I think I share his sentiments that perhaps we need to look at regulating this sector. If there are people who are able to make a living out of it, it means there is still some potential there. And therefore, let's give an opportunity to South Africans, put them first and train them, understand how is it structured, research further on what is happening, so that you don't regulate something that will also put the lives of people in danger. And that's why it has to be regulated, and you have to work with credible institutions to look at what is possible, and let's find a way so that we are not populist about it, and because it's fashionable and we start talking about yes, just allow people to mine and all that. Yes, if there is a potential and for economic activity, why not? But do it properly and invest the resources, train people, and it will definitely help.
There's two questions I want to ask around any type of investment that would be needed. Let's say when you get the legalese right to catalyze artisanal mining in Gauteng. That's the one question. The second thing is from yourself as finance and economic development. Are you directing funds into solving this problem? Is it a problem of the previous mine owners, or is it also a governmental thing and the regulations around the closing of mines? What are you seeing from behind the fence?
Yeah, well, the previous mine owners have a responsibility and an obligation because they have made money out of those mines, and a lot of those communities are still destitute, and I think they must come to the party and help in regulating and creating skills that are necessary for these artisans, most of whom should come from those communities, because then they will be able to benefit there. And because they have mined in those shafts, they should have a better understanding of what are the potential risks and if there's any reinforcement that needs to be done, any machinery, and then they can advise so that we can be able to regulate and ensure that the economic activities that takes place, it's not at the risk of people's lives. We will, because as I said, mining it's a national competency, but we've got a responsibility to ensure that any economic activity that takes place in our province, we participate in it, we support it, whether it's regulations, and if there's a need to make resources available, especially if those resources are meant to benefit the citizens of Gauteng, we will gladly do that. But we would not want to make pronouncements without processing these matters, without thinking through and deciding how do we proceed.
I want to look at the constraints that the province currently is under when it comes to the financial flows. There is a clear understanding that the province is trying to obviously balance the books. There's going to be a need for investment, but I want you to maybe take us through the current situation in terms of understanding what the finances look like, and also maybe lead us into what the investment drive is going to look like to plug holes, but also to get the province growing again.
The province, as you know, the economy of the country has not been doing well, and it means that the national fiscals, where we all get our resources, shrunk, and there's not been a lot of money. So there's been a cut on budget for all provinces, not just for Gauteng. And you will also appreciate that in the main there's about 3 sources of funding for any province. It's the pot that I'm talking about, which is called the equitable share, and then you've got the conditional grants, and then you've got own revenue. This is money that we raise through other activities that we engage in. So the economy has affected our equitable share, one, and by implication, some of the conditional grants are also affected. But you'll know that in Gauteng, citizens rejected e-tolls and said, we don't want to pay for e-tolls. And money had to be found somewhere in our coffers. So we will be spending something like 20 billion rands on e-tolls. And that money is for the actual debt, it's for the interest and maintenance. So we are already losing money because of that. But there was also a miscalculation of our population by Stats SA. So the equitable share is given
Based on
and
the size
based
and needs.
exactly. So as a result, and this was previous years, so it means we were given more money. I can't remember, it's 2016 or so. So that money has to be recovered because it means we benefited at the expense of other provinces.
Inequitably.
Exactly. Now they must get back. So our budget is going to be cut drastically for a number of reasons. So we need to make sure that we think outside the box, we raise resources, our revenue. It's not going to be easy because you can't expect the same taxpayers to be taxed even further and all that.
Yeah.
But we know that there are leakages in certain areas.
Yeah.
And there are people who are supposed to be paying us and not paying us. There are a number of areas. If you look at scrap yards, for instance,
Yeah.
not properly regulated, not paying. You look at the undertakers, it's not clear where is revenue, where are they contributing, whether they're taxed or not. So there's quite a lot of weaknesses we've identified in the system. You look at our gambling board, the online gambling, for instance, there are provinces that are benefiting from what's supposed to be our revenue and all that. So there's quite a lot of areas that we're looking at in terms of revenue. We want to significantly boost our revenue, but we're not only looking at that. There are resources that comes from national government as well, the different funding agencies. There's a skills fund, you've got SITAs, you've got UIF, and a lot of that money is deployed in the province and even other provinces, but there's not been proper coordination, and that's why the impact in certain instances is not felt. So the state of our finances, it's very precarious,
Yeah.
and we don't have enough, and anyway there will never be enough resources, but we are prepared to spend what we have efficiently, so we have to bring about efficiencies in the system as well. We want to make sure that it's also impactful, and we hold people accountable and deal with issues of corruption, because through corruption we also lose a lot of resources. So we definitely need to deal with corruption and make sure that the limited resources we achieve optimal results.
Now, I know that we had a conversation just offline about how important it is to rejuvenate the CBD of Johannesburg and what that would take. You came with some really, I would say, simple yet necessary turnaround plans. Can you take us through some of those plans to look at a city center like Johannesburg and what that would take to develop it and to push it in the right directions moving forward, obviously with the help of the city?
No, thank you very much. It's not just the city of Johannesburg. If you look at all our cities, including Pretoria, Krugersdorp, Germiston, Vereeniging, they have to be revived. And I think the leadership of provincial government and municipalities must rise to the occasion and take this task very serious, because it has got far-reaching implications for all the things we want to do. So firstly, you must fight crime, because there is no investor, whether local or international investor, would want to come to a city that's not safe. You have to deal with the issue of cleanliness of these cities to make sure that they appear good, and people like to associate themselves with beautiful things. And that's why we used to have a campaign called Beauty is Humanity. We need to bring back such things. The robots must work. The lights at night must work. You must deal with regulatory constraints that are there, the red tape, delays. You must deal with corruption. You must make sure that your tender processes are open and transparent. And that's why we would want to digitize so that you limit human interference in procurement processes. It can't be right that people must struggle to just get their invoices to be paid. So in a province like Gauteng, why can't everything that has to do with the invoice, can't it be digitized? And you submit everything, you are able to see who has your invoice, when was it received, who has not signed, and then that way we hold people accountable. The procurement process, when you apply for a tender, why do you still have to submit a lot of papers and people tamper with your documentation and then you are told that you did not qualify? We can't be having that if we are serious about the future of our country. And I always tell people who work in government that if you don't solve these problems whilst you still have the opportunity, next time you'll be on the other side and you will not even know who to ask for help, because the people who will be there, they will be completely new people, they will be not knowing you. And anyway, any system of governance must not be dependent on who you know. Once it's dependent on people and who you know, then it's not an effective system. So those are the things we believe that if we can change, there will be a huge difference in how we conduct business, in how we are perceived, and that will help to change the narrative, and hopefully the economy will take a different trajectory.
Now, MEC, one of the things that has come out in some of the discussions that have been happening here at Mining Indaba 2025 has been that in the past, the Gauteng province has been seen to not be as open to working with business outside of saying they want to work with business rather than actually working with business, because the track record of major, I would say, development projects has showcased that more often than not, the province has worked by itself in certain projects, and those projects have found themselves lagging a little bit when it comes to execution. When we look at housing projects, etc., there have been issues there. Now, you're in the most powerful seat. In fact, some people would even call you a prime minister or a prime MEC. You're in a position to change things. What are some of those things you are looking to change when it comes to how business, big and small, and even township businesses can work with the province to really grow and develop the province?
I think we have been working with business. Perhaps the model has weaknesses. For instance, when we build houses, when we build schools, when we build roads, that is done on our behalf by businesses through a procurement process. And unfortunately, some of the projects are not completed on time because of a whole range of issues, sometimes because of the capacity of the same business that is supposed to help, sometimes because our processes of appointing are not as rigorous, and we end up appointing wrong people who don't have the skills, the knowledge, and the capacity, and sometimes because of fraud as well on the part of those. So there's a whole range of issues why some of these projects have not been executed and all that. So that's why we want to relook at that framework and recommit ourselves to working with business that is committed to economic growth, to job creation, skills transfer, and not fly-by-nights, because we must be able to distinguish between fly-by-nights and real and legitimate businesses. So, and that's why I'm talking about digitizing. That's why I'm talking about bringing integrity. So we will play our part as the provincial government, and at least we are committed from where we are sitting that, and we are confident that we will be able to do all these things will not just talk about them. And that's why some of these things the Premier will talk about in the state of the province, and we will explain them further in the budget process. And we have no choice because, as I have said, the resources are constrained. We need to maximize the relationships. We need to optimize the resources that we have and make sure that there's an impact.
Now, I want to get to a very contentious issue that I think rages on in different townships across the province of Gauteng. The issue of debt collection and non-payment. What is the province looking to do? How are you looking to work with communities to start to alleviate some of these non-payment issues, which actually hamstring the province from actually getting the work done and developing in the way that you're looking? How are you looking to work with people to get more or a little bit more out relative to how constrained disposable incomes are?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are paying, and there's a lot of people who still want to pay. And you also have inaccurate billing system by some of our municipalities, and that makes it difficult. And I'm sure you have had an experience like I have, where you are given a bill that is
completely off.
So it's a two-way process. So it's not just about people only paying, but the municipalities as well, and the systems have got a responsibility to improve integrity, reliability, credibility, and that way we will be able to improve the collection. But it's also not about people not wanting to pay. Sometimes people don't have the money because the cost of living is too high, because the economy is not doing well. So there is no shortcut. That's why we have to have a comprehensive approach and grow the economy and make sure that we do all the things that we say we want to do to create employment, grow the economy, have SMMEs being paid on time, help them to create more jobs and all that. So that's why the investment conference is important, because we want those inflows into our economy to be able to achieve all the things that we want to do.
So talking about the investment conference, why should investors now put money into a province like Gauteng?
Well, they are already putting the money. It's not like they are not. And unfortunately, that money is not circulating as fast as it should, because we have not been moving the way we're supposed to as government at all different levels to help them solve a lot of the challenges they are facing. I mean, Gauteng economy is big. It's a strategically located province in the country, in the continent. It's a gateway to the continent. It has got huge and enormous industrial infrastructure. You've got roads, energy, and all other infrastructure that you need as an investor to be able to engage in economic activity. So it's a no-brainer. There's no doubt that if you want to do business, you must be in Gauteng, but we don't want to take that for granted. And that's why we are now working systematically. We are coordinating better, and we want to collaborate with the private sector, but we're also putting our own resources as well to meet the private sector halfway. For instance, there's a project which private sector is implementing and investing about 2 billion rand. They only want 100 million from us for the project to be able. So we are also putting our resources.
Now, on a lighter note, as we wind down, you're also an author, and I think that sometimes it shocks some people who don't know you as well. But you wrote a very, I'd say, interesting book at an interesting time, titled "Never Too Young to Lead: A Call for the Youth to Rise." Now, with you having written this book, why did you write it, and how does it apply to you now, relative to where you are in your stage of leadership, and with where the country is going, and what type of young leaders it needs?
Well, If you look at the format of the book, you will realize that firstly, we've got young and old people, but the old people who are in the book, Dr. Sidi Mufumadi, Mary Metcalf, Professor Marwala, and others, they have one thing in common with the other young people who are in the book, is that they were given responsibility to lead at a young age at some point, and they grabbed the opportunity with both hands. And when you look at the format of the book, you'll also see that it's a conversation I'm having with except for, I think, two articles that were contributing in the introduction. We're having a conversation, it's about their experiences and all that, because basically we're saying that never too young to lead. You must never, as a young person, say I'm young, I can't do certain things, I can't take responsibility, because the future is not in a distant horizon. You are living, and as you are living, you are constructing that future. You are shaping it. So you can't say, I'm going to wait until I'm old and then I'll take responsibility. You need to take responsibility now. It's about that. And I was not even looking at myself, and that's why I did not write a book about my journey as a young person, being a leader, blah, 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 blah. Though in the introduction I do explain where I come from as a president of COSAS, the ANC Youth League, my role there and all that. And having had a privilege to be given responsibilities at a young age, and that has helped and shaped me to be what I am today, to be able to tackle the responsibilities that I'm given with confidence, and commitment, because I've learned along the way and at a young age. And I think the country needs more young leaders today. More young leaders must be given responsibility. But the young people and young leaders must equip themselves with knowledge, with skills, and that's why they must go to school, they must read, they must be activists, and they must have courage to express their beliefs and their convictions. They must not ask for permission to lead. Old people will not hand over the baton easily, so they must kick the doors, and they must. But they shouldn't kick the doors when they've not have an idea of what to do. And that's the point. Never too young to lead does not mean we must be reckless. It means you are never too young to lead for as long as you take yourself serious by accumulating knowledge, acquiring skills, and being prepared to learn and network with other people.
And lastly, you've just stepped into this role as of last year. My question is, at the end, when you either move on or move up, what do you want the people of Gauteng and those of South Africa to judge you on based off the work that you are looking to put in over the next 4 years?
The systems must work. There must be credibility. There must be integrity. We must be able to account for every cent. And we must act decisively against corruption. And the business confidence in the provincial governance systems, not individuals, should be elevated. And once it's elevated, you'll have more people coming to the province.
MEC, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for sharing.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I appreciate opportunities like this to see the people like yourself who are actually on the other side, and us and more as civilians and communicators, or people trying to make sense on behalf of others, get this opportunity to sit with people like yourselves, and we appreciate the sharing and the openness. We appreciate the work that you put in. I don't think people often say this a lot to public servants, but I think I always make sure that they know that we appreciate the work that you do.
Yeah,
At the end of the day,
we are happy when there are people who appreciate, but
it is a thankless job.
yeah.
But thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. I hope the rest of the conference goes really well for you.
Thank you.
And hopefully the next time we sit down, all of the things that you are envisioning will have started and people will be able to see.
No, definitely. We must be held accountable, and we don't have a problem of being held accountable. We must be criticized constructively, robustly. We don't have a problem. As they say, you can't, if you can't stand the heat, don't be in the kitchen. Yeah.
Also, don't take meetings after a certain time. I saw people calling you for meetings at the craziest time. You must.
We have no choice. We must work. We said we want to serve, so we have a responsibility to serve to the best of our abilities, and we will do our best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.